Hello and welcome to the NVR podcast number 9. I'm Rachael Aylmer.
And I'm Peter Jakob.
And today we are talking about only parenting. Peter, do you want to start?
Okay. Well, the idea for this topic arose from an earlier conversation we had about a client of yours, a parent who sat in your session and said she feels a bit like a fraud because her son isn't violent and doesn't really show destructive behavior. There are things that he does that upset her, that bother her a lot and get her very angry. But from what I understood from our conversation, this boy doesn't actually show behavior that is outright harmful.
No.
So I guess the question arises from that, to my mind, is, are we still in the realm of NVR here?
Yeah, that was my question.
Yeah. I was wondering, what are your thoughts on that?
I think it's really interesting how, as the sessions are passing by with the clients, is that there is less conversations about his harmful behaviours. There is a tendency of some controlling behaviours, but in my experience, much lower level than some of the other clients that I've worked with, where there's been high levels of control and very damaging the relationship between parent and child. This doesn't appear to be so, and I felt the mother's, I suppose, confusion about engaging these sessions with me when her son isn't being violent, outrightly violent, and property damage, I would say, would be stomping up the stairs, banging doors, but less destructive, less harmful, very less harmful.
All things that we would probably expect from a teenage boy or girl, for that matter.
Yeah, developmental stages of teenage life. My own experiences of being a mother to 2 daughters who have gone past those teenage years. Yeah, I hate the word normal, because what is normal? But yeah, ordinary expectations of ordinary developmental stages.
So a teenage boy stomping up the stairs, maybe slamming a door, is hardly, if it's not in a context of overall aggression and violence, is hardly harmful, but nonetheless it can be upsetting. Unpleasant, troubling. We wouldn't want to coach parents in that situation to resist using all the methods of nonviolent resistance, I would think. We wouldn't want them to set up a campaign of concern. We certainly would think it would be totally disproportionate to carry out a sit-in, to go on parent strike in some way or the other. In these circumstances, doing those things, I think, would rupture the relationship. It would push parent and child apart from each other rather than help them connect. But I guess the question is, does that mean NVR has nothing to offer? Or is there something in NVR that could be helpful here to the family? And it makes me think of new authority, the way Rachael Aylmer has come to understand that in the practice of NVR, we develop a different kind of authority, which is quite different from traditional forms of authority.
Mm.
And that this new parental authority, parts of which have probably been around for thousands of years, that this new kind of authority can probably inform parenting across the board, whether or not we're dealing with very serious, aggressive, and controlling behavior.
Yeah, which brings us on to that title, Only Parenting.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of focus in this work around not utilizing all of the NVR elements, but focusing on reconciling and increasing presence, parental authority,
Yeah.
and some harmonizing,
Yeah.
some connections.
I guess most parents have at times, or do at times, escalate with their children. I certainly have. You know, I've raised 3 sons, and I think they could attest to the fact that their dad has sometimes stood in front of them and did his very best to win an argument.
Have you, Peter? I
Yeah.
haven't. I've never argued with my kids.
You've never argued with your kids.
Never.
Yeah. But I guess that brings us to the very idea of new authority, doesn't it? Can we win arguments? And is it desirable for a parent who faces ordinary challenges in their child's adolescence, to try to win an argument? I guess that to me would be a key question around only parenting, about new authority in parenting.
Yeah, and the winning of the argument, that stands very, for me, when I'm thinking about a particular case, is really prominent, that the parent wants to, and through their own admittance, wants to win the argument, and then ends up finding themselves in a symmetrical escalation.
Yeah.
And then I guess then that's when things become more uncomfortable, but less violent. But yeah, wanting that desire to win.
So I guess in that situation where a parent is dealing with ordinary teenage difficulties, because teenagers will act in ways that are difficult because it's part of that developmental stage, isn't it? Where teenagers need to feel that they're self-determined in life, yet they're not always able to. That it becomes important to consider what does winning an argument mean? What am I trying to achieve? I guess that to me is always the question. Why am I standing here in front of my son? Why am I saying yes, but? Why is my voice getting louder? What do I want to achieve? Because by the time my son or my daughter is an adolescent, they can storm out of the house. They can come home late, no matter what I do. They have that power. So what do I really want to achieve? And I guess what I want to achieve is to be able to give my child guidance, so that my child, who is seeking greater self-determination, can have some support in making good choices and the right decisions. But in order for them to be able to do that, I need to influence them rather than winning the argument.
That brings me on to that lovely conversation with parents around that influencing them. Imparting my wisdom is what I found myself doing with my girls through those years, like setting them on the right path, and then them resisting my maternal voice of guidance and trying to influence them, and they want to go on their own path. So then I'm unable to influence them making good choices. And I made a little note. It all comes from a place of love,
Mm-hmm.
from parents who are wanting to help their children make good choices and to help them influence them in making good choices. I really recognize from myself and from clients I've worked with that it is coming from an absolute place of love.
Yeah. You just said resisting your motherly or parental voice of guidance. Did you mean your motherly voice of control? Resisting?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. I was confused for a moment. Yeah. So, how did you seek to influence your daughters rather than control them?
I think just changing tact, recognizing that what my input was unhelpful, it wasn't being received in the way that it was intended, taking a step back, utilizing some silence and space between me and the girls.
Okay. So, the first, it sounds like what you're just describing is the first step. So, it was realizing that what you were doing, the way you were going about it, simply does not lead to what you aim to achieve.
No.
And then you step back, you stop doing what you're doing. There's some silence. The
Mm,
silence doesn't feel like angry, aggressive silence. It doesn't
no.
feel like rejecting silence. It doesn't necessarily even feel like hurt silence. It feels more like calming silence
Yeah.
that enables you to think about what you want.
Yeah. No hostility within that. There's no not a passive aggressive position. Just
Yeah.
let's create some calm. Let's create some space in self, in me first, ultimately.
Okay, to give yourself space.
Yeah,
So it's working with yourself as a parent.
totally. Yeah.
And I mean, I know that self-care is bandied about a lot, but perhaps that is an act of self-care, isn't it? To give myself space, just to calm down. I don't have to win the argument. I don't want to carry on going about it in the way that I have been because it doesn't achieve the desired results. I
Mm.
need some time for myself to regulate myself and then perhaps to think things through. Is that right?
And then followed up with a really lovely thought of, is this the parent that I committed to? Is this the parent I want to be?
Okay, so to get in touch with the
Yeah.
parent you want to be, to
Mm.
get in touch with your values as a parent and your self concept.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm still curious, and it's a shame we don't have your daughters here. How would you then get to the point of influencing them in a constructive way, of giving guidance rather than seeking to control?
I think just in some questioning.
Asking them questions?
Yeah, what might you think would be good? Whatever it might be. I've got two daughters who are complete chalk and cheese. One demands lots of my attention and one less so.
Uh-huh.
The one that demands my attention is the one that needs me to find the solution for her.
So, but you said that you would ask her questions.
Yeah.
What is the sort of question that you would have asked?
Well, what might be the outcome if you choose that option? What could be the outcome if you choose the other option?
Hmm.
What one do you like the best? What fits for you? Giving some ownership for her to make that decision, I think, was she doesn't live with me now, so.
Yeah.
But,
And so it reminds me of what family therapists do all the time, which is operate with questions.
mm,
Questions
mm,
are the standard tool of family therapists.
mm,
Here in parenting, you ended up providing guidance in a way that is quite similar to what
mm.
a family therapist would do. So that's really very helpful, I think, in understanding or developing an understanding of what new authority can mean.
Mm.
And I was just thinking of the family I'm working with currently. And I guess we started out in the realm of NVR because their child was showing very dangerous, highly aggressive, harmful behaviors.
Mm.
But things have changed. And he will now still, in certain situations, say things to his mother, such as, "Oh, shut up."
Yeah.
And that's not pleasant. It's not something that, as a parent, you would perhaps just ignore if that happens a lot. But on the other hand, again, it's not outright harmful.
Mm.
Not the material of nonviolent resistance in its very involved form. It's more they've moved into the realm of normal parenting. And what this mother told me, without us having even discussed this in any session, she just told me what she has learned to do is to strike the iron when it's cold.
Mm.
She learned that from NVR. But to bring it up later the next day, and she's found that she's able to engage in dialogue with her son. So in the car, she's also found that that's a very good way of engaging adolescent boys in dialogue. You do that in the car where there's not too much eye contact, and you know that the journey will be over soon enough so that you're not committing him to an endless conversation.
Yeah.
She would just say to him, I guess you were upset yesterday, and so was I. But I'd like to tell you how it upsets me when you tell me to shut up. And she then told him something about her experience growing up and her older sibling telling her to shut up very powerfully, and how that upset her and hurt her and silenced her.
Mm.
So she was sharing something of her own experience rather than telling him what to do. Of course, she didn't want him to continue telling her to shut up.
Mm.
But it was important to her that he should understand some of her own inner life. And I think in this way, she was engaging in dialogue with him. And she was then able to ask him, what was it about for you when you told me to shut up? You must have been very upset.
Yeah. Go on.
Yeah, no, it's just, I'm thinking it's sort of then moving into dialogue as part of just parenting.
And
Ordinary
I'm
parenting.
thinking, yeah, that following up with that, because he's going to tell her to shut up again, isn't he? This kid in that kind of aggressive tone, and that she then shares a much shorter version of that, which is, I have informed you. I don't like it when you speak to me that way.
Yeah.
That's it. She doesn't have to give that version every time.
Yeah.
But I think it's lovely that she can have an opportunity to explain to him and open up a dialogue should he want to engage with her about that.
Well,
Yeah.
I also think she's doing something very important. She's tapping into his capacity to be empathic.
Yeah.
Teenagers are not generally that empathic towards their parents at the best of times. Teenagers can be very empathic towards their peers. Yet she is tapping into that potential of his and, in a sense, empowering him. rather than seeking to make him do anything. Maybe he can choose to do something differently. Maybe the next time shut up is on his tongue, he might bite his tongue for that reason, and learn to treat a relationship with care, which happens to be something that I value very much in my own life. And I think I'm still learning, how do I treat a relationship with care? And I think operating with empathy is a really key part of that, but also enabling the other person to have empathy with me while I seek to have empathy with them. That is not just something that enhances a relationship between partners in life, but also between parent and child, no matter what the age.
Yeah. And while you were talking in summary, I was thinking about a recent incident with my youngest daughter telling me to shut up and turn the music down. I had some friends round and I shouted that I should turn the music down and go to bed at 11:30. And the feeling of being told off by your child, your 21-year-old daughter, feeling very naughty. And also letting it go in the moment and apologising for keeping her awake, and deferring a response the next morning with a nice cup of tea.
Yeah. It's always these parents listening to loud music with their mates and the young people not being able to go to sleep.
Yeah, but actually that caring in the relationship, wanting to invest in a healthy relationship. Yeah. I think that's kind of a summary of the discussion really this afternoon.
Yeah.
There's more to parenting, isn't there?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, should we just sort of take a minute or two to look back at what we've spoken about?
Yeah.
You've just offered a summary of taking care of the relationship. Maybe that's a principle that underline that is there at the basis of new authority in ordinary parenting. That it's about taking care of the relationship. Maybe that's a question that parents could ask themselves, whatever the situation is. Am I acting in a manner that takes care of the relationship?
Yeah, that's a nice question.
I like your summary. I guess what also stood out for me is the distinction between NVR that generates new authority, but being there for harm, for actual harmful behavior, and new authority in a more general sense being applicable to ordinary relationships where we're not seeing massive harm being done, but the ordinary conflicts of daily life where it can be an important ingredient to help improve family relationships.
Yeah. No, totally. I think that's a really good summary. I don't have anything more to add.
Maybe this is a good point to finish our podcast for today.
Okay, well, I have to say thank you for listening to our fortnightly podcast. Just as a note that we were discussing that it would be really nice to receive emails for any suggestions from our listeners for any topics that they may want to invite us to talk about. Those can be emailed through our info@partnershipprojectsuk.com email address, and we would aim to respond to those.
And today's podcast was about just parenting. The next podcast will be about beyond parenting.
Podcast number 10. Look forward to it. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.